Should you pay off your mortgage or invest? This used to be an easy question. If you had spare cash and a mortgage fixed at 2%, you invested it. It wasn't a hard call. Anyone telling you otherwise was simply mistaken. That answer, though, is out of date, and most of the people still giving it haven't noticed. So here you are, some money has built up or a lump sum has landed, and you're stuck between two instincts. Half of you wants to throw it at the mortgage, kill the debt, sleep better. The other half thinks that's the timid option, that the money should be working harder, that you'll look back in 20 years and wonder what on earth you were thinking. People say, I know I should be doing something with this money, but overpaying feels safe and investing feels greedy, and I don't know which is right. If that's you, what you're really asking is which one earns more. But that's the wrong question, and it's why so many people get this decision wrong. Both camps will also have given you bad numbers. The always invest crowd are overstating their case badly. The people who tell you a paid off house is priceless are overstating theirs. On the actual evidence, the difference in return between the two is much smaller than either side admits. So here's what I'll do. First, show you that evidence using the best long-run data we have. Second, explain why overpaying your mortgage can leave you less safe, not more. And third, the thing that decides this for most people, which isn't the mortgage or the stock market at all, it's which account you put the money in. So let's just look at the numbers on both sides. Start with overpaying. Every pound you overpay is a pound you stop paying interest on. So your return is exactly your mortgage rate, guaranteed, not taxed. There's no investment on earth that offers you that combination. The average 2-year fix in the UK, as I speak now, is currently around 5.6%. And the average 5-year fix is almost identical. With plenty of equity in your home, you might be nearer 4.5%. If you've slipped onto your lender's standard variable rate, the average is now above 7%. Check your own rate because that spread is enormous. But let's use 5.5% as our working figure, guaranteed and tax-free. One thing almost nobody mentions though, that return is only guaranteed for the length of your fix. Overpay on a 2-year deal and you've locked in 5.5% for 2 years. What you pay after that is anybody's guess. Now, the other side. The best long-run data we have on investment returns comes from the Global Investment Returns Yearbook, compiled by Elroy Dimpson, Paul Marsh and Mike Staunton. It covers 35 markets and stretches back to 1900. Over the period from 1900 to the end of 2024, world equities returned 5.2% a year after inflation. But here's the number that should stop you. Over the first quarter of this century, global equities delivered 3.5% a year after inflation. Now, compare like with like, because this is where people go wrong. Your mortgage rate is a nominal number. Inflation is currently running at 2.6%, so a 5.5% mortgage is a guaranteed real return of a little under 2.9%. That's against 5.2% real from equities over the long run, or 3.5% this century. So what do you actually get for taking on the full risk of the stock market? The crashes, the years of nothing, the possibility of being down 40% at the moment you need the money. Somewhere between well under a percentage point a year and about 2.5. That is a far thinner margin than almost anyone will tell you. Now, 2 caveats. If inflation runs higher than it is now, your mortgage gets cheaper in real terms and the gap widens. And past returns are never a promise about future ones. But if your instinct has been that overpaying isn't as daft as the internet insists, your instinct is right. Nobody should be telling you this decision is obvious because it isn't. So why don't I just tell you to overpay and end the video now? Because of something that gets almost no airtime. Overpaying feels like the safe option. In one specific and important way, it's the risky one. When you overpay, the money's gone. Not spent, gone. You can't get it back. It's been converted into equity in a house, and you can't spend a wall. You lose your job, you get ill. Every pound you overpaid last year does nothing to help you make next month's payment. You've reduced your debt and reduced your resilience at the same time. The US finance professor Michael Roberts has written about exactly this. Once the cash is in the house, every route to getting it back out is a bad one. A reverse mortgage on worse terms, or selling the home, which rather defeats the purpose. If you'd kept the money, you'd simply have had it there. There are limits too. Most fixed deals cap overpayments at 10% of the balance a year, and going over that triggers an early repayment charge. So this often isn't a decision you can act on in one go. There's a real argument running the other way though, and it doesn't get enough respect either. Being mortgage-free lowers your fixed outgoings permanently. That matters enormously in retirement, when a bad run in markets can force you to sell investments at exactly the wrong moment just to cover the bills. Lower outgoings mean less forced selling. That isn't a feeling, it's a real reduction in risk. Then there's discipline. Invest the difference quietly assumes you actually will. Overpaying is enforced saving. For a lot of people, the plan you'll actually stick to beats the one that looks best on paper. So both options carry risk, they're just different risks. Which is precisely why this was never a maths question. Which brings me to the thing that actually settles it for most people. Everyone argues about the same thing, mortgage or shares. Almost nobody asks the question that matters more: which account you put the money in. Because luck changes how much your investments have to earn before they're worth it. Say you invest in an ordinary taxable account, you'll pay tax on dividends and on gains. So what you actually keep has to beat your mortgage rate after all of that. On the numbers we just ran, shares may well not clear it. Now put the same money into an ISA, £20,000 a year, no tax on income, no tax on gains, and you can reach it whenever you like. Now you're comparing your mortgage rate against the whole return, not what's left after tax. So shares have less work to do. And then there's the pension. This is where it stops being an argument. Put £100 into a pension and it costs a basic rate taxpayer 80. It costs a higher rate taxpayer 60. And if your employer offers salary sacrifice, you currently save national insurance on top, though that perk is being capped from 2029. Be careful here though, because this gets oversold. The uplift is partly unwound when you draw the money. A quarter of a pension is normally tax-free. The rest is taxable. The people who gain most are those getting relief at 40% going in and paying 20% coming out. But there's one part of this that doesn't get clawed back later and isn't a forecast of any kind. If your employer matches your contributions, every extra pound you put in is met by a pound from them. That's an immediate 100% return before the money has been invested in anything at all. Now set that against a guaranteed 5.5% return from overpaying your mortgage. It isn't close. It isn't remotely close. And that's the entire point. When the difference between overpaying and investing is a point or two a year, doubling your money on day one doesn't just tip the decision, it obliterates it. So here's the order I'd work through it in. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm telling you what to deal with first. And that's the emergency buffer. If you haven't got several months of essential spending in cash you can reach today, that's what this money is for. Everything else on the list assumes you aren't one bad month from a crisis. Second, expensive debt that isn't your mortgage. Credit cards are averaging around 27%, overpaying a 5.5% mortgage while carrying a balance at that rate isn't a close call. Third, any employer match you're leaving on the table. Do check though, 3% is the legal minimum your employer has to put in. Matching anything above that is a choice individual employers make. Only then do you arrive at the question you came here with: overpay or invest? At which point the honest answer is that it depends on things I can't possibly know from here. How secure your income is, for example, whether you'd sit tight through a 40% fall in the markets or bail out at the bottom, whether the debt keeps you awake at 3 in the morning, and how long before you need the money, which is where pensions cut both ways. That money is locked away until 55, rising to 57 in April 2028. For some people, that's irrelevant. For others, it's the whole decision. Those aren't details to tidy up after the maths. Once you've got the account right, they are the decision. So back to where we started. You came here asking which one earns more, overpaying your mortgage or investing. The difference between them is far smaller than you've been told. The option that feels safe carries a risk nobody mentions, and the account you use matters more than the choice you've been agonizing over. Two last things. If this was useful, do subscribe. And if you'd rather read than watch, my blog is The Evidence-Based Investor at evidenceinvestor.com. It's free. Remember, this is general information, not advice about your circumstances. Your home may be repossessed if you don't keep up repayments on your mortgage, and the value of investments and house prices can fall as well as rise. Until next time, goodbye.